Namaskar, Shama Didi. We begin today's session. Today's session is on the late Guru Rohini Bhate ji's choreography and the historicity and critical examination of her choreographic art specifically. And Guru Shama Bhate ji has been her her student for the longest time. And in the tradition of the Guru Shishya informal tradition, personalized training, Guru Shishya Parampara ke tehet, she has observed the art of Rohini Bhattaji both as a student and then later as an independent guru. She has examined, she has critically observed and learned her art. So, namaskar, Shama Didi.
Namaste,
Welcome
Mary.
to this
And I
session.
would add, I was a part of a lot of discussions in her earlier choreographies because Rohini ji was one choreographer or guru.
Can you
I'll,
speak a little louder?
Rohini ji was one person, one choreographer or guru. She would share everything. So everything happened in front of my eyes. The music was being designed in front of me. It was taught to the musicians in front of me, not just the dance part, but everything like costumes. So everything was shared with the students.
So, my first question to you is about Rohini Tai had learned and was a very prominent student of Lachu Maharaji, who, of all the gurus from the Kathak formal tradition, was one who was engaged in and successfully engaged in choreographing for films. And how did she apply? Because choreographing for the stage and then choreographing for the film is different. What did she ever speak about the two performance spaces, and what kind of difference was there in displaying the art form for the stage vis-a-vis the film? And what were the main crux of the teaching of choreography of Pandit Lachu Maharaji that she imbibed and examined and applied?
First of all, I would like to tell you that when she was with Lachu Maharaji for years and years, she would she would go to Mumbai, learn it, and come back to Pune. And her riyaj
You have
or
to speak a little louder there, Didi.
her riyaj, whatever she learned from in Mumbai with Lachu Maharaji was practiced here in Pune, and I was a witness to all that process. So I must. So I know it at close quarters. I could watch it for, but I must tell you that she learned. Mm, one to one and more or less solo things, and she never, as far as I remember, she never accompanied him to the dance choreographies he did for the movies like Padmaji Sharma or Habiba Rahman. Rohini ji kind of kept away, or I don't know why, but as far as I remember, she didn't accompany him to the sets, or she wasn't part of that choreography process when he composed Mohe Pangat Pe or Thade Rayo O Baki Yaar. But Lakshmaraji always talked about it quite a lot. And he, in 1972, when Rohini was celebrating her silver jubilee, Lakshmaraji himself choreographed two pieces on Rohiniji's students in Mumbai. So one was Bani Thani Ai Sham Pyari Re, I remember it very well. And the next was, mm, I think, was on Rohini ji. Is कान देखो ठाड़े है ब्रिज की ओर. Those two, I remember them very well.
What was the
And
technique of choreographing, say, Sab Banat Hai Na Ai Shama Pyari Re? What
so
was,
there,
how did
that's
he,
what
yeah, how
that's
did
what I
he
want to
space?
describe to you. That's what I want to describe to you. There were four dancers there, and it's everybody जैसे हर कोई अलग तरीके से बन ठन के आ रहा है, अलग तरीके से घूंघट ओढ़ रहा है, अलग तरीके से कृष्ण की जो उनके मन में प्यास है उसको अलग तरीके से प्रकट कर रहा है, डिस्क्राइब कर रहा है. दैट वाज so lyrical and so beautiful, and it was of course Rohini ji was there, and she kind of I would say absorbed that principle, that idea, and I could see it in her choreography later also. That in her classical choreography also, the gopis, because Lachu Maharaj ji would say it's not only about a different gongat, it's about the character. How, why she with that gongat is because that person is, the character is like that. Somebody chulbuli would, how would she uh, अपना कैसे घूंघट ओढ़ेगी, कोई है वो समर्पण भाव से ओढ़ेगी, एंड दैट वुड रिफ्लेक्ट इन द घूंघट as well as the attitude and the facial expression, which I think was remarkable and very different from what I was uh, what I could see otherwise in Kathak field. Of course, people did it, but this was put together in one frame, four people in one frame. चारों आ रहे बनी ठनी करते करते और अलग से चाल करके, अलग से विथ अलग डिफरेंट एक्सप्रेशन, विथ अलग डिफरेंट घूंघट ओढ़ना, एंड द लुक्स. Why was she coy, chulbuli? Why was she so binhast and all that? You must have seen the Baji Bharai piece, and that kind of conviction he had when he did that Bani Thani Ai Sham Pyari Re. And of course, Pune girls were, we were
Question,
envious.
one question which I have from your description, how did he use the space to establish different characters? One, how did he use the facial muscles and the hands to create the different characters to bring out the abhinay even in the group?
I was also a young person then, so take it with, please take it. I wasn't as mature or as experienced as I am today. But if I remember right, mainly they were all the time together in walking in a straight line or in a diagonal, but with different facial expressions, different chals, like ta the, tat a the, तो दूसरा था थे थे. So एक जो टाइमिंग का सेंस, मैं you are talking about space, I'm talking just now about the timing also. कौन कब खोलेगा, ता थे तत या ता थे तत थे, कौन खोलेगा या ता थे आ थे, like that. So those small nuances, I even today I remember those
How beautiful. Uh,
beautiful nuances.
and how did Rohini ji, can you give me one example of where she used in one of her compositions in choreography to do this?
Because she, when she choreographed some pieces on us about Binda Dinji's Thumris or other Thumris. Mm, she used this the same kind of principle that they all are in love with Krishna, but they express it differently because they are different.
Wow.
Everybody's age group is different. Everybody's situation. Somebody is a married woman, somebody is a young girl, somebody is kind of hesitant, wants to go but not too ready. Somebody is too concerned about her gharwale.
Huh.
That, like, I could give you an example, and she set it up with us. I remember it very well. Like somebody, वो दही मथ रही है, and then see how these people um, thought about it and also transformed it into dance. तो मथ रही है is ये speed है, and then she gets that बांसुरी की आवाज, she stops, and then she's thinking that, oh, I can't be going, I shouldn't be going. The pace goes slow
Mm.
because she's thinking she wants to go, and she stops herself from leaving. And somebody asks her, why are you not going? So she says, no, my sas, nanand, they are all. So I would rather stay here than getting that all that after I will have to uh, get to hear all that. So I would rather stay here. And then she again gets that basuri ki awaaz, and she says, what the hell, I'll leave everything and go.
How
So
beautiful.
see, this is just maybe 5 seconds, but it says everything.
Absolutely.
Somebody else goes for fetching water with gada, and she as she's वो पानी भर रही है बांसुरी की आवाज, तो she forgets about it and it just flows away, and she's
So,
completely unaware of it. But
so with the help of the Basuri ki Awaz, she is able to create these different situations. So, jab
situations
hum,
and characters and their response to that
how
bansuri.
beautifully. So, it allowed her to create these spaces on the stage to open
So
up,
emotions, space of
right, and
emotions
timing, and timing,
and timing to exhibit it. It was
right.
so beautiful that वो बह जा रहा है घड़ा, and
Uh,
then she realizes अरे बह जा रहा है. She tries to grab it and is not able to grab it. So
how
she says, it was so beautiful, I can't tell you, so subtle, with such uh, nuances, and very very distinct in the mm, distant for the audiences or for the person who was watching that, and of course as student for us.
okay. Didi, this is just so beautiful because when we are talking about Abhinay in Kathak, you are also looking at the main source of the technique, which is Shabd Kholna.
Can you be a little louder?
I said the main technique of Kathak, which is Shabd Kholna. And when you talked about the Ghungat opening of Lachu Maharaji and the application of character building. So the character building itself is Shabd Kholna.
No, because I distinctly, as I watched him as a young girl, but I distinctly remember him saying and then proving it to us कि घूंघट घूंघट के प्रकार नहीं है. It's about the character. Why that person है वैसे खोलेगी, उसको सोचो. How would be uh, the torso? As you know, Lachu Maharaj ji was his torso in his abhinaya or anything he did, that Kathak, हमेशा कहते थे कि लचकना क्या होता है, मटकना क्या होता है,
अरे वाह.
कसक क्या होती है, मस्त, you should know that. And सब उन लोग हमेशा वो कहते थे, महाराज जी बेन महाराज जी, कि सबको एक ही समझते हैं लोग,
Mm.
but he would
Prove
represent it,
present.
prove it.
My
And
second.
again, I would want to tell you one more mm, about one more composition, which you must have watched Rohini ji doing, about Mugdha. यही कारण सुंदर हाथ चलो.
हाँ हाँ.
Yes. So that was first I saw it from Lachu Maharaj. When it was at a Jaipur seminar, and we had the good fortune to travel with him in a train. That
Oh.
time everybody would travel on trains, and Rohini ji, we were three students accompanying her for that seminar, just as observers, of course. But I still consider it my good fortune for various reasons. One is because I could travel with Lachu Maharaj on that. And I'm telling you about this because this is a very famous piece from Rohini ji and everybody knows about it. So that was Mugda. Lachu Maharaj ji already was, I think, 60 plus by then.
Hmm.
And with वो यहाँ की ऐसे झुर्रियाँ, and he was showing Mugdha. So it starts from there. That for me, and at this time I was just 19, and you can imagine a girl from Pune, heart of the city, a Maharashtrian girl. So never had any real contact with Hindi speaking people. That too Hindi of Lucknow people. Huh? So it was all a very uh, intimidating as well experience, that I wouldn't even utter a word, just but could absorb a lot, could take in a lot. And he was showing this Mugda. And I remember, Navina, not even for a second one felt that he was above 60. He was a man. There was no music. There, there was no music. It was
Yes,
on the train journey.
this is very important because Doha is something that is done without music and without tal.
Um, without tal, yes, but not without music. There is a tune.
Okay, okay.
He was singing. He
He,
was singing. Uh,
okay, he was
and
singing.
he was singing, but there was no tal. But he had all the lie in his body, and while sitting also, he knew what he wanted to do with all his attributes, like the curve of his torso, or the pushing of his torso, or the draining out of his body. He could show everything in in Jhatpat or Jhakjoran mein. He would say Jhakjoran mein. And Jhakjoran in just one gesture.
Can you recite the entire Doha?
I'll send it to you.
You don't remember it?
I don't remember it in a very proper manner, but
Whatever you remember, can you?
because I didn't learn it, so I don't know it.
No, but
But
whatever.
I have it written, I have it with me, and I'll send you it on the WhatsApp for sure. But I can tell you now that यही कारण सुंदर हाथ जलो, यही कारण.
So
तो
it's about a young girl who went into a wedding chamber with the first night, and out of modesty, when the gentleman came to her, her bridegroom
but
came
the
to her.
backstory is this was in a king's palace, and there were a number of poets. And he asked Kehi Karana Sundara Hachalo, and everybody had to complete it, give it a And one poet gave this, that nahi abla bhed ras bhed न जाने. So nahi abla ras bhed न जाने.
So
Or
a new little girl, a Mugdha,
you know it,
doesn't know
yes.
the nuances
She
of the
doesn't know.
spirits.
And of course, she is very, mm, uh,
She's filled with modesty.
but it's, of course, she's wanting it. Her youth is wanting it. And she is a little apprehensive about the process or what will happen to her. And so I still remember his face full of emotions. And Chumarati was one person who wouldn't say no. So we could see it about 8 to 10 times in that our stay.
Oh my God.
He
How
wouldn't say कि नहीं अरे बहुत बार दिखा दिया. Yeah, he would do it again and again. Uh, he was one person. You know, we are all different. So he was one person who would never say no. He would do it as many times as the audience was ready to see him. And so I still remember there was one more, that some other songs are coming to me. It will come to me. There was one Dadra, and I was telling you about the timing. So, with his thigh, like tabla players, he was all the time with this Dadra. Jama jama pani bhareri rekon. So, he was all the time in his garden, in his eyebrows, in his. So, you
wrist.
never felt that there was no tal.
How beautiful. How
You know
beautiful.
what I
The
mean?
complete immersion.
There
The,
was no umrus, no gumrus, no musician, no tal, but you didn't feel the lack of it at all.
the
And
second,
that, now coming to Rohini ji, she had picked up that, the essence of it. And
well, since she was a formally trained musician as well. She was a formally trained musician as well. She was a
yes,
formally. So that made
formally
a
trained
difference.
musician, number one, but also she was a very talented lady. Her गला बहुत सुंदर, लय का सेंस बहुत अच्छा.
वो तो
So
मोहन राव
when
कल्याणपुर
she got
जी.
the training, of course, उसको जो कहते हैं कि उसमें बाहर आ गई. मगर she natural sense of life was very beautiful. She was very musical also, not just a trained musician, but by heart, very musical and lyrical person. So that reflected in her bhav.
Just a personal question because she was an extra out of all the. She was her height was more than average. Rohiniji's height was more than average with a very beautiful face, very linsome body. But she was, like when we see Kathak dancers, comparatively, Rohiniji was a very tall person. So, uh,
Tall and slim at the
very
same time.
slim. So, did that, uh, how did she deal with that when she was teaching you? Or was there, do you recall, did she say anything about how Lacho Maharaji would have, because you're talking about a whole physiography, just curiously.
Rohini ji was a tall person, and as you know, very, very, she had that charisma kind of, or very, I always called it a magnetic kind of aura. So she would attract people like a magnet, and
Yes.
we were all the time watching her. My and as young girls, we were. I'm a short woman, but at that time, even, and she was a tall woman, but we all looked up to her, so that added the height added to our her aura, I would say. to us. And of course, you realize as you grow up, you realize that Kathak dance, for a Kathak dancer, she average Kathak dancer,
Absolutely.
sorry, for a Kathak dancer, her average height was a little
Yes.
extra. But her other guru, Mohan Rauji, so was Mohan Rauji.
He was very tall.
He was also very tall. And so there is, so for us, gurus are like that.
Mm. Mm.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
When I
तो
saw
क्योंकि
Maharaj ji,
मोहन राव
not
जी
saw.
का क्योंकि
Hmm?
मोहन राव जी को हम लोगों ने देखा था कथक केंद्र के
In,
सेमिनार में and I still remember in that seminar there was Kapila ji, there was Lachumara ji, there was Mohan Rao ji, all the stalwarts were there. It was during Gopal Das ji's director when he was the director of Kathak Kendra in the 70s. But I clearly remember one of the things which were remarkable, my first guru, Reva Vidyarthi ji, saying that Mohan Rao ji किस तरीके से लय के साथ खेलते हैं, लय के साथ खेलते हैं. और मुझे महाराज जी भी whenever he would talk of Rohini ji, of course it was the subtleness of, maybe because it was also her background of English literature that she studied, that her sensitivity of understanding poetry was so compelling. Her understanding of poetry was so compelling. But also, I felt Biju Maharaji looking up to her with regard to deciphering the nuances, the subtlety, and the complexities of lay. That was there. And if in this, I would,
I would add one more thing to this. When she developed a character, because saw her from very, very close quarters, and I've been, of course, first I wanted to say about the height. When I saw, I can't say saw, I have seen Maharaji since he was a very, at his peak, a young person with full of vigor, because of Prabhaji, he would come to Pune very often. But when I learned with him at his workshops, he always said, "मुझे मेरा डांस नाटे लोगों पे अच्छा लगता है." That was the first time it struck me that mm, नाटे लोगों पे अच्छा लगना और लंबे लोगों पे अच्छा लगना. You know how people,
क्योंकि
Mohan Rao ji would say that mm, खींचो, मतलब ये फ्रेम खींचो, ये फ्रेम खींचो. महाराज जी would say समेट लो.
oh.
So it's about the aesthetics of a person within the Kathak frame.
Which is interesting because three people I know, two people I know who directly learned from Achan Maharaji. One was Kapila ji and the other was Reva Didi. Both of them
Reva ji.
learned from, and the third, of course, Sharan Rani ji, Sharan, the Sarod player. So she also learned from Achan Maharaji. And Bade Maharaji ka, all three had, because he was a big man in terms of his size, unlike his other
Hefty,
brothers.
hefty.
Yeah, but he was a very light dancer. That's what
Yes.
everybody records. What was interesting that Reva Didi would say, "Chauda hokar," जो Mohan Rao ji का था ना, खींचो. So this was very, don't hide your persona. Expand your persona as you go. And I remember Biju Maharaj ji saying this, perhaps because of his early days as a child, he remembered then his interaction with Kapilaji, he remembered that when he would teach us, he would say, "This is me, but this is me on stage." He would make these, "This is me, but this is me on the stage." And this is the dancer that is me on the stage. My next question to you about
But
Rohini.
I watched Lachu Maharaj ji as well, and he was also उनका इसमें मतलब सिमटा हुआ. Mohan Rao ji was.
Chora.
So for me, what is interesting, and for as a student of Kathak, what is very important is how Kathak movement can expand and how it can. So For me, everything is beautiful if I could
This
use it in the right manner.
this reminds me, if you come to Delhi and you go to this monument called Humayun's tomb, it's like it was built before the Taj Mahal. I call the Taj Mahal a Mugda, and I call the Humayun's tomb a Proda, a mature woman. And when you see the Humayun's tomb, you have the six cornered star. But then what the artist does, that it expands the star, and then the design collapses and becomes a star. And the whole thing, so it becomes a star and then it expands, then it goes to the next, it expands, it collapses. So what you're describing, for me, it's like performing a monument, performing it. Dance comes to you in different ways.
Yes, and the person, like in a solo, when you are a solo figure dancing, you carry your space around you. And in a choreographic format, of course, it is totally different because there are many figures and they are all relating to each other in that space, right? So when you are carrying that space, I believe that every person has one full, I have my space around me and I play within that space. So that was different for Rohini ji, that was different for Maharaj ji, that was different for Mohan Rao ji. The three gurus I saw at close quarters, and that makes their aesthetic very different. Like the distance, of course, Kumudini ji, her movements from her vertebral column or the spine have a different relation than Maharaj's. Within the Kathak frame, of course, we are not doubting that.
My second question to you is, how did Rohini Tai use music as a concept of time and space to design her choreography of organizing human bodies on the stage? So, actually, what you're talking about is my next question.
One a very early choreography of hers, I would like to mention it, not because I remember it very well, but because the concept was which has remained, the concept has remained with me even today. I'm a science student, I did my BSc, and at that time she said that this is what kaleidoscope.
A what?
Kaleidoscope.
Oh, kaleidoscope. Okay.
And this is 1972. So in 1972, for a Kathak dancer to use the concept of kaleidoscope through Tirtha Thunthun Natitata
Arre वाह.
was was for me, uh, how do I say, something which is uh, जिसको कालजयी बोलते हैं, it's a all time thing, right? And I don't of course remember सब कीर्तक टुनटुन उसके जो भेद बनाए थे.
मतलब है जो उसमें समय और the time and space of reciting the essence of Kirtakuntu Natitata meant
But
sparks
the
of colors, sparks of
composition of the composition of the dancers would change.
ah,
One person, one of us, I think we were 8 or 9 dancers. One of us would always represent the tukda as it would be in the traditional reference. But the others, it would change, like you are watching them through the kaleidoscope. And for me, to
bios.
use
You mean
physics,
the bioscope?
physics concept for Kathak dance and put it in a very traditional manner across is, even today it gives me, uh, you know, so that was one. And another is she did Malhar, the composition. And the way we started was without Tatkar. Nadi did Nakhadi Tatkar. So she imagined that there were raindrops and our Tatkar Dede nana, dede na, dede nana, dede na. Just our feet were visible. Do you get what I'm trying to say?
Yes,
I'll
yes.
say, should I say it again?
No, no, I understand because
We
it
were
reminds.
wearing silver cotton ghagras, silver with silver borders,
Hmm.
and uh, our feet were seen in 1972. The lights just so you were talking about space. So she was aware that only that space, the floor and the movement of the raindrops with our feet. Adedena, 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 adedena.
Wow.
Which of course नादेजना टाइम तो है ही म्यूजिक तो है ही मगर space to use the space as as if there are drops on the courtyard. If the way you see the raindrops on the courtyard, so it was to me, I don't know how to describe it, because it's a, I think, one of the best choreographer principles one could
Yes.
ever imbibe.
So to add to what you're saying, there's a I'm forgetting which school of miniature painting. It is a Rajasthani painting, and it shows the Abhisarika Naika going to meet the Nayak, but it is raining. So one of the impediments, एक जो रुकावट है वो बारिश का होना है. And so the painter actually स्टॉल्स हर मूवमेंट क्योंकि सामने पूरी पर्दा है वो छोटे छोटे रेन ड्रॉप्स का आ रहा है तो जब आप when you are describing so this girl Abhisarika is the Naika who is Shama Abhisarika that she's going to meet the Nayak in the middle of the night but she's prevented one of her impediment rukavat are the raindrops so it becomes a parda and behind her is her Sakhi, who is observing her progression as she's observing the. So, how, even in the visual arts, in dance,
How
every,
beautiful. How
everything,
beautiful.
everything is moving. But in a visual art, to show that progression was so beautiful. So, what you're telling me, I can just recreate it. And that is 16th or 17th century.
Yes. And to imagine, to start with just the rain sound,
Hmm.
I think it was just beautiful, beautiful. And
And
then it started. The
yeah,
rain really,
so when we're looking at the structure of Malhar, what kind
because you also mentioned abstract. That's why I thought of this example. That
but
the abstraction is in many ways. This is abstraction that you're, otherwise rain would be shown like this. But she is showing it through. So this is, for me,
so
this is
now
an abstract.
hello.
For me, this is
Hello.
an abstract.
Yeah. So my point is because this is very pertinent to the question I've asked about the relationship of music. We've spoken on Tal, and she begins the opening in trying to capture the essence of a raga, which is season, which is talking about the season of the rain, Malhar. But since Rohini ji was such a great musicologist as well, a music person, and she used to compose her own music. Uh, from there, how did the lyrics and the movement of the body expand in showing the idea of Malhar? And mind you, why I'm asking you this is because Nasiruddin Shah, the Nawab of Lucknow, who was a great great grandfather of Wajid Ali Shah, he had created Malhar as a dance drama which was enacted over 3 days. And every day, based on the rag and raganis of Malhar, he had the women dress up and the musicians recreating the raganis and ragas of Malhar. So he was bringing together painting with music. So I wanted to, it's very interesting because across centuries, You're getting these thoughts of aesthetics.
It was like I would this this is just coming to my mind just now as we are talking. Rohini was one person who would think about the abstract, but as she was, as you know, she was a music. She has really learned music to a high degree. So she had that, how would I say, traditional conditioning as well. So immediately Malar would come to her. As you know, for me, like I'm also actually trained in music, but like somebody Westerner who doesn't have that conditioning might design it differently. But Rohini ji had the advantage of being the traditional advantage of traditional conditioning as well as free thinking. So at one point she is using the rain sounds in an abstract way and fusing it or using it in combining with the Malhar rag. Very, very traditional and very conditioned way of thinking.
How was she organizing the idea of Malhar using the designs of the bodies of the dancers?
Um, for this, for first piece, we were of course, but then the normal Malar thing, like the that we were doing. Then of course Mayur and all these things,
But
Julas.
with you,
So she would take, she would use, she would use like in the paintings, in the miniature painting, she would use that kind of mm, aesthetic as well as her own ideas and combine them together. That's what I'm trying to say.
my third question to you, Didi, is since many of her choreographies, as you said, and she would use geometry, colors. How did she use the idea of geometry, colors, and grids to portray the abstraction of the choreographic art? तो वो ज्योमेट्री और रंग क्योंकि वो कॉस्ट्यूम्स भी बहुत केयरफुली वो करती थी और क्योंकि एब्स्ट्रैक्ट एक ऐसे अमूर्त है अमूर्त है तो वो किस तरीके से ज्योमेट्री कलर्स और ग्रिड बनाना यानी ग्राफ को बनाना वो कैसे अपने कोरियोग्राफिक आर्ट में इस्तेमाल
मुझे मुझे लगता है कि उनके इंस्टिंक्ट इंस्टिंक्ट पे उनका बहुत as an Indian dancer would do, instinct पे उनका बड़ा जोर था. And she would have, I would say she would have visualized in her imagination what she wanted to choreograph, and then she would choreograph it in on the dance.
Can you give one example of colors and geometries of any one of her composition?
Like for example, Usha Sukta, you must have seen Usha Sukta. So for Usha Sukta, she had in her mind the
Usha Sukta is a verse from the Rig Veda, which
ha
which
was there,
talks about
and
the
the Usha's those Rishi Kanyas going for that choreography. So she used Vichas from Vedas.
Hmm.
So when she used that for music, she had in mind those minimal approach, as we would call it in modern day. Only no elaborate music, only simple line which would go on and on and on. Just चार स्वर या पांच स्वर, not elaborate like a full
Like,
rag development because it was from Vedas.
like in the Samved chanting.
Exactly, yes. And so when she was thinking about the movement, she also thought that there was no advance probably. There was no advanced Kathak like ornamental movements she avoided. Then she even avoided very stylized movements. And imagine what this until this movement comes to a stylization in progression, right? So she would go back in time and think about how it would be before the stylization
So
for
this is
movement.
very interesting what you're talking, because in Sri
And she
Lanka,
explained this
eh,
to me, so I know it from her own.
in Sri Lanka, there is a World Heritage Site called Sigiriya. It's on a mountain which stands, and the you have to climb the steps to go right up. But in the middle of the rock, there are paintings like we have in Ajanta Ellora, in Ajanta, and there are a group of apsaras going to worship the dawn, and Buddha is standing on the other side. So what the painter has done, he has used only the lotus flowers in their hands, and each lotus is different. Each body movement is different. Each character is different. And just
That's what I
looking at the
described
dawn,
to
and the
you.
eyes are reflecting the idea of the dawn, which is different. So, what you're describing to me about Rohini ji reminded me of that painting.
Yes, 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 yes. And she
But
would describe how those mm, what how those ladies would approach, how would they walk, how would they approach, how would they think, how would they, so there was serenity all the time. It was like this in music, in movement, in the bearing, especially in the bearing. You couldn't move your hand. You had
very
so
beautiful.
the pace of the moment was your terra, and there was no single ornamental moment of Kathak in there.
This is the
Because,
fourth question.
as you will agree, ornamentation has come with the stylization, right? That we all will agree. So she purposely avoided that. That's what I'm trying to say.
So,
She
very beautiful.
purposely
जो पुराने जमाने में कहते थे खड़ा नाच,
खड़ा
खड़ा
ना.
नाच, है ना, कि खड़ा नाच है और सारी बात सारी खड़ी नाच की हो जाए. Such was the power of abstraction. My fourth question to you would be, having worked, she did a biography in Marathi of the famous Western dancer Isadora Duncan. Naturally, when you research, you write about somebody's work, you are constantly influenced in examining your own aesthetics. One part of Isadora's work was कि वो सामाजिक और वो folk dances अपने कामों में लेती थी. She would take social dances and folk dances in her work.
Um,
मेरी ताई ने
I'll tell,
कभी
I'll tell you two, three things in this. When Rohini was translating this work, there was no Xerox copies or at that time. So I would be one of the girls who would be writing, we would be copying her manuscript. So I have seen it word to word. I know it. And she would, like all the gurus, she would discuss what Isadora was expressing, what she was trying to do, and what she was stating. If she was stating everything, was it in uh, what
cognitive.
congruent, congruent what she was doing and what she was talking. And she was discussing it with us. Again, of course, I was not a very mature person at that time, but I remember it well. And Rohiniji took me to watch Loves of Isadora at this time, the movie. And I can tell you that I was shocked and I was scandalized like anything because I couldn't जो पच नहीं रहा था जो मैं देख रही थी. But Rohini, she always admired her love for dance. She was ready to do any, let go of anything for dance. And Rohini always admired. And you know,
Did Rohini ji ever take any folk dances of
we
any
danced many folk dances. That
in
is
in a
another side I wanted to tell you that when Rohini ji first started, she wasn't. It wasn't as if Pune had a Kathak dancer to teach her.
no,
So she
but
learned.
in the choreographies, did she take any of the folk dances?
Uh, I'm trying to tell you the same thing. That when she started her choreography, her work, I would say, she chose some social themes, like one based on partition, Jhalam Chashru, the,
What is
the
it
script,
called? On partition?
Jhalam, partition,
What is it?
partition,
Huh.
Jhalam Chashru,
Okay.
Asu, Jhalam ke Asu. Uh, it was a poem written in Marathi, but the theme, as you can see, and the other was about the dam here in Maharashtra, which they built a dam and how people were
Displaced.
drove away, displaced. She took that theme. So at this time, she wasn't a trained Kathak dancer.
Which kind
She
of dances?
she wasn't a trained Kathak dancer
Oh,
at
she
this time.
wasn't. Okay.
She it was her beginning, and my husband's father was her first teacher, who was a follower of Ram Gopal, Uday Shankar, and as you know that those were the times when everybody would use or was impressed or was um, sorry, Uday Shankarji's follower in their thinking, in their way of, like even Mohan Rauji used one theme which was War and Peace, Tolstoy, Shanti and Yudh and Shanti. So people were those were the impressions I would say of those times. Just now I'm not talking about the dance part. I'm talking about the choice of the theme because you mentioned social themes. Yes, I have done one. I was part of that choreography when it was Hima Gauri and Sat Butke, that influenced by Cinderella in Marathi, of course. So then, when she started learning from Modraji, going to Lucknow, and for quite some time, then of course Lachu Maharaji, she left kind of all this. She had good 10 years training under Parvati Kumar Master also in Bharatnatyam.
Yes.
But she left all that and she kind of became a very strong Kathak dancer and remained within the frame of Kathak. So that's why I told you such a long story. And Isadora, when about Isadora, I think she did not what she probably picked up from Isadora was the free spirit. So she remained in Kathak, but as you know, you have seen her experiments.
Right.
In that, she was, she didn't kind of remain stuck to the Kathak she was trained, but she
Experiment.
kind of and she tried to expand the boundaries of Kathak. She went deep into Kathak content and
My
literature that was useful for Kathak, like Vidyapati or Rasa Khan. So she went into that direction of using Riti Kavya
My
for
last,
Kathak.
could you describe her two favorite choreographies and the new elements she introduced when applying the Kathak theme?
I did, no, I did in Usha Sukta, I did
Usha Sutta.
one. I also in Malara,
So these are
uh,
her two favorite choreographies.
uh,
What were her
with,
choreographies?
was, I can't tell you, but I'm sure Usha Sukta was her favorite one. And also Time, Samay was
Tamil.
her favorite choreography. She experimented a lot. Even in music, she experimented a lot. And in that, she experimented a lot in kinds of space.
तो बिफोर वी कंक्लूड आज की बातचीत खत्म करने से पहले आपकी फेवरेट मेमोरी रोहिणी जी एज अ गुरु क्या है व्हाट इज योर फेवरेट मेमोरी व्हेन यू आर लुकिंग एट कोरियोग्राफी एंड व्हाट इज योर फेवरेट मेमोरी ऑफ रोहिणी जी
And my favorite memory is when she was teaching us a Thumri, which is I'll tell you, it will come to me. We were four dancers, four students learning one after the other, and it was one-to-one teaching. But all the rest of the three had to sit and watch, not go away, just stay there and watch. And she would teach us small things like when you are. I gave one example in the beginning also that when you were wearing ornaments, it was कृष्ण आप कान का पहन रहे हो so you think of it as if it is Krishna's earring that you're wearing. So she would connect it like you were wearing a necklace. She would say you think that he's wearing it to you, so his hands are there. So she always connected the जिसमें नाजुक भाव के थे ना नाजुक नाजुकी जो भाव की होती है she would connect it. She would, so when she was teaching मिल जावे नंद को ढोटा मेरे मन भावना रे
क्या है
मिल जावे
हाँ
नंद को ढोटा मेरे मन भावना रे. This is again Vrinda Ji, but मेरे मन भावना रे. She would say, just don't wear a necklace as if you're getting ready and going. You think about that necklace which Krishna once wore it to you. His hands were near you. He was he was breathing next to your neck. So that building up of a character was, and it went on like 6 months, and we had to, like real old days, and we had to work on it before we went to learn from her the next time. It would come every 4 days, no, because we were four of us. And there, one more thing I would say is, if we couldn't get something, of course we don't get, no students don't get it. She wouldn't ever say no. She would show it 10 times, 15 times, 20 times, explain it. And so in my mind, I feel that it's like giving the chabi, chabi of a cave in your hand. And now you explore. You have the key. It's not as if she told you one thing, two things, three things. That she did, of course. No denying in that. But for me, this is the main thing that she kind of gave the mantra. And you could. So whenever I work on my anything, uh, somewhere it comes from somewhere it comes to me, and because she taught that in so many details, so many subtleties, so many nuances, and again and again, not just once and by apna karo, not that. So that's the fondest memory.
थैंक यू सो मच शमादी थैंक यू वेरी मच यस
Okay. This is how I see it. Maybe it might be of use to you or not, but I just want to share it with you. Why I think Rohini's bhav is different. That I think that because she was an erudite person. She would read a lot. She would watch theater a lot. She would take us to watch movies, theater, everything. So when she developed a character, I mentioned a little bit of it. She would develop it like a film character or a theater character. डांस में कैसे होता है कथक में कर दिया फिर ब्रेक कर दिया फिर ब्रेक लाइक व्हेन वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट छेड़छाड़ ये किया फिर ब्रेक कुछ किया चोटी का किया ब्रेक समटाइम्स वो कृष्ण छोटे बन जाते हैं sometimes बड़े बन जाते हैं so we don't have that consistency of age growth or the nature of that character in mind we have Kathak in our mind traditionally speaking right like डगरे चलो तो देखो शाम कर गई I have seen लच्छू महाराज जी doing it महाराज जी doing it तो डगर पे काम किया फिर रोहिणी जी का ऐसे था कि अगर वो कहती है कि ये मिडिल एज वुमन है तो हर रिएक्शन ऑल डेवलपमेंट वुड बी मिडिल एज देन उनका जो भाव अनुभाव का भी होगा वो भी मिडिल एज के साथ होगा वो she would think what she would wear as a middle aged lady तो वो उसको ना तो आई डिस्क्राइब इट लाइक थिएटर का उसमें कि क्यों कौन सा समय था कौन से समय निकली थी इसलिए क्या कहना था कौन साथ था साथ में कौन था इफ देयर वर हर सखी वर दे कॉन्वर्सिंग और वर दे जस्ट कृष्ण की वो आएंगे करके आहट सुन रही थी या वो अपने में मस्त होके जा रही थी so she would think about all those things जिसको मैं कह रही हूँ the whole situation the whole character and her her age her स्वभाव her look her so that I think was special to her in her भाव
Thank you so much. This has been incredible. ये बड़ा अद्भुत एक इंटरेक्शन रहा. शायद हम लोग कथक में अब वार्तालाप ही नहीं करते हैं. और आज जो भी आपने रोहिणी जी के बारे में whatever you have described in to the as responses to my 5 questions, 5 प्रश्नों का जो आपने उत्तर दिया है, पूरा एक नया तरीके का कथक का इतिहास याद आपने दिला दिया. बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद आपका दीदी.
thank you